Have you ever wanted to create a winter scene so real you can almost feel the frostbite? Create a cinematic animation where every snowflake, every shadow, and every moment feels alive. In this video, we are diving deep into the art of crafting cinematic winter animation with realism in their core. From hyper-detailed texture to atmospheric light and snow dynamic, I'll show you how to bring winter to life in Blender. And let's start from the very beginning. These are the models I used in this cinematic animation. Here are different buildings for this Winter Hill village, some trees and other details. Originally all these models were without snow, and that's the first scenes we're going to start. Snow in this animation is the main and the most important detail. As we also can see on the final animation, I have different snow. Falling and flying particle snow, and snow which covers the scene and objects. To add snow to this object like roof, I used Real Snow add-on. This is free add-on in Blender. You just need to find this add-on in the extension, in the preferences, and install Real Snow. This add-on is absolutely simple, and I even don't know what to explain here. I just select the surface, in my case this roof, and press Add Snow in this add-on. Blender covers this object with realistic snow. In this add-on we also can control the percentage of coverage and the thickness of the snow. But this is only an object and I need some snow texture. So I already have in this scene snow material, and I just link this snow material from this roof. This realistic texture snow from Polygon, and it looks really cool. Also we need to add snow to other materials in these houses. My goal was to make it feel like these houses are covered with snow, not only roofs. And first of all, I used a simple wood texture for these houses, and secondly, I have this group knot, and this is snow. So let's ungroup this knot to show how it really works. Essentially, this is combination of texture and ambient occlusion. This one is simple dirt texture, as you may see, and using color ramp I made this texture more contrast and select some range which I'm going to use from this texture. Next I use mix color node, where this texture works as a factor, and second color some white color like snow. This adds such light spots on this wood surface. Using this color ramp, I can also control how many of these effects I need on the surface. The second is ambient occlusion and color ramp. In this case, color ramp allows me to invert this effect of ambient occlusion, and basically ambient occlusion is used to add some dark and shadows in the object to emphasize details. But using white color we can add some dust effect, and in this case it also works like snow, which covers this object in the corners of geometry. Again, mix color node to mix this ambient occlusion with the main texture of wood. If you have a close-up camera view, you may connect snow material instead of second color in the mix color node. I'm going to use these models in the middle and background position in the scene, so I use only color to make small optimization for rendering. Also, one thing about window. Since I also have night animation in this project, for that I added some light to this window glass, using also dirt texture. So this light will not be uniform and make some effects like the snow also partly covers this window. I use this combination to make snow for all materials in these house models. Just group this knot and copy it to other materials like wood, windows and others. All other objects which you can see here I covered with snow using the same real snow add-on. Just select for instance this tree and press add snow. Use the same snow material to make the snow like real snow. So using this way we can easily turn any simple models into snowy models just using real snow add-on, realistic snow texture, and in the conclusion to add some details in the object. Let's move to the environment scene and use these buildings. Let's make a village. In order to make a realistic village, I used GeoScatter. You may use whatever you want tools for scattering, but it's definitely faster to make this using scatters and placing all these buildings by hands. If I look at this render from the final animation, we can see that the small houses are mainly concentrated on outskirts of this village, middle and high closer to the center. This creates a beautiful village spot in the overall background of the frame and creates some order in this village. It's not just a dropped group of houses in the scene, you know. So to make this we need different vertex groups for different houses. This is going to be the first group of house, and let's paint the area around this village for small houses, like this. So I select these two models and add them to this scatter system for this vertex group. And let's make some settings so this houses looks like a village. First of all, I enable self-collision so that houses do not intersect each other. Next, random rotation so that they can be beautifully placed on the surface. Only I will make tilt 0 because I need this rotation only on the axis. Basically that's all. Next we can draw places where we want to put these houses using weight paint in Blender, forming some streets that still looks like a village. Some logic must be present. If we look at the render again, we can see that there is some street, the same somewhere here. Even you can see that there is space somewhere between the houses. It's not just a bunch of models scattered on the scene. Alright, I add another vertex group and I'm going to use it for this group of models. Again, self-collision, random rotation, and let's paint areas for these houses. By the way, I can switch between different vertex groups and paint areas for the first group of houses, add or remove, then do the same for this one, create a nice looking village just using GeoScatter and vertex groups. And yeah, the tallest building will be in the middle of the village. Although it's probably not correct to call it a village, judging by the buildings, rather a settlement or maybe city. Doesn't matter. For me it was more important to create beautiful spot of this village. I had long experimented with sketched different variations and sizes of buildings, and in the end I come up with version where that wouldn't be big enough to create a big perspective in this picture, because I wanted to use volume fog in this picture. That should add a lot of atmosphere, and very big buildings didn't create the right effect. But before we go into the light, a little bit about landscape. As you already understand, I use the same GeoScatter to make a forest on the mountains, tree areas inside the village and around the village, but I should probably say more about foreground snow or the snow road. Here I sculpt a lot of in Blender. It's quite density topology because I use dynamic topology with 2 pixels detail size to get enough details on this snow. Its foreground and attention to the details are more important than the whole scene. So I use sculpting to create tracks on the snow, but for the material I use the same snow that I used for the roof of houses. But the main details are sculpted. I think it's clear. Anyway, if you have any questions about the environment, you can ask them in the comments below or subscribe to my Patreon, by the way, where you can get answers to all your questions and bonus content for all my videos, as well as access to exclusive video tutorials, and subscribing my Patreon you also support my channel. So let's move ahead, and in order to make a nice atmospheric cinematic animation in Blender, we need light. I always say that light is the most important thing, is everything, and allow us to create an atmosphere in any artwork or cinematic animation. Also, anytime I use a combination of volume and different light sources. But the volume is definitely the main magic to making the atmosphere in the 3D scene. So I'm going to make different light scenarios, and the first one is going to be a night atmosphere. And I make the background colors some sort of like blue night color. It even might be darker global light. Now I can use emission in volume to make some fog, and the color of this emission to make this fog closer to the global atmosphere, and this also covers the horizon. As you can see that some sort of everything is disappearing in the smoke or fog. Maybe even make global light darker and increase the emission of this volume light. Yeah, like that. Additionally, I add a new light to highlight the foreground, this snow road. Not too much, it might be looking like a winter night. And as you remember, I said about Windows light. It's time to enable this light to see how it looks in this night scene. Yeah, good. So this is the first light condition, night. Let's do something else, and I keep using this cube for volume, just duplicate and move to the new collection. This is going to be some morning light, so I use sky texture for the environment light in Blender, and look at how in this case volume works. I can use emission color to emphasize this skylight. See it? Basically, I use volume light to enhance the effect of this morning sun by using color of emission closer to this sun color. Let's rotate this sun position, and I would like to increase the ozone in the sky texture. It makes shadows bluish, nice and picturesque effect. And anisotropy to make sun rays. So duplicate the volume cube one more time and move this one to another collection. Using this one I'm going to make some natural light, like overcast. Again, using emission color and principal volume, I set the color and the atmosphere in the picture. Maybe even scale this volume cube to make the deeper atmosphere. I add a new cube to this scene, and this one will play a shadow role for the foreground. In the first light scenario we added additional light to highlight this spot, but now we can use an additional cube to make this foreground darker, blocking some lights. It's also one of the ways to work with light in 3D scene. So the last scenario will be a combination of previous lights. I do a copy of this sky texture and mix this one with a simple overcast HDRI. In this case I will get sun, move the position of the sun by the way, and HDRI will work in also like a dome light. And also I adjust the volume. It's combination of different light streams where I can use ozone, for example, in sky texture, and also change the color of emission in the volume to give the amazing effect of winter weather. Let's maybe open Compositor here, and I want to add glare. It works in 3D viewport like real-time compositing and also creates an amazing atmosphere in combination with everything that I did before. I can talk about light a lot because, as I already said, light is the most important tool for making atmospheric scene, and I have a full playlist on my channel about lighting. There are a lot of techniques, so consider watching this playlist, link in the description and in the corner of this video. I already made 4 different atmospheric scenarios and grouped them, so I can easily switch between them, just enable the necessary collection, and I also drop all world light here involved in the shader editor. I can easily connect the right light for the right collection. But I also want to add flying snow into the scene, like this one. And let me show you how to create so realistic snow in Blender. So to make a lot of snow, I added this plane. It's going to be an emitter for the particle system. I add a new particle system to show you how I did the same for my animation, and I already created this object for snowflakes. These are simple planes with small modifications, and if I enable preview render, we can see here some material and texture. I remove all textures and let's review this material. Basically, this is Blender noise texture. I used a color ramp to choose the range and make this noise texture more contrast. Next, I use this one as an alpha in the principal BSDF. Another texture is gradient texture. I just use spherical gradient and again use color ramp. I set the part of this plane in the center. Next, I used the mix color node to use this gradient as a factor and mixed this noise texture with black color, because I'm going to use this texture as an alpha and everything that is black will not show on the material. Also, I use the same texture and bump to add small bumps on the snowflakes. And finally, a small value of emission. Duplicate this material to other snowflakes, just make some changes to the noise texture to make a variety of the snowflakes, and we are ready to use them for the particle system. Here choose collection instead of hello, and we can select created collection with snowflakes. Also, don't forget to select pick random and object rotation for this collection. Now we can make some adjustments to this particle system, like rotation, set randomized rotation value, increase scale and scale randomness to get more natural variations. Go to the first frame and play an animation. We can see falling snow in the camera. But in order to see snowflakes flying across the scene in the first frame, because now it just started falling, go to settings and I set -200 for frame start. In this case, when I start playing an animation, in the first frame snow had already spread it across the scene, not just starting falling. End frame is the end frame of our timeline. And lifetime I set 500 because my timeline is 300 frames and we need to add these 200 frames, which we used for the frame start range. Now we can see that everything works well. At the beginning of the animation we already have nice falling snow in the first frame. I also added turbulence force. This force allows to add randomization for the direction of these particles. So using turbulence, snowflakes will be more spreaded in the scene and their direction will be more random and more natural. I also decrease gravity so that the snow falls much slower. Good. Finally, I significantly increased number of particles to 200,000. This will most likely lead to problems and freezing of the blender, as it's a big number of particles and snowflakes are small, which adds just a crazy amount of particles into the scene, but will definitely give an amazing result. And don't worry, we can bake all these particles here. Just choose this cache, and all cache will store it in the folder on the disk where your current Blender file is already stored. Press Bake. After baking, you can play an animation. Yeah, due to a large amount of particles, it's still not real time, but it works well and we even can see the results on the render. So using this way we can add realistic falling snow in the Blender using particle system. As I said, it can be difficult if you have a weak computer. In this case you can safely reduce the number of particles, but the result is worth it, I guess. Use Bake and another trick, hide from the viewport particle system if it's hard for your computer. So, after all, I have one Blender scene but 4 lighting conditions, and we can basically press the render button, but wait. That's exactly how much time you will waste. Let's analyze what we have. If I play an animation, we have only snow animation in this scene, but the whole scene is absolutely static, right? What I'm supposed to do in this situation? To save a lot of time on the rendering, I disabled this animated snow for the rendering, and I'm going to render only one still image for each light conditions. Since nothing has happened here, I mean some movements in this part of the scene, only snow. So I use 200 samples for rendering here and make the image render. Select another slot for rendering and change the light for the second one. Make a new render. And do the same for each light conditions in the project. Finally, I've got all renders for each light conditions and we can save them. This is the first things we need for an animation. Let's do a render of snow. Now our goal is to make a render of snow without a scene, but we can't just disable all collections and leave just snow. We need a render of snow with the same scene conditions. How to do this? First of all, let's enable here holdout and indirect only. And we can see these settings opposite each collections. That's what we need. Our goal is to make the whole collections as holdout and indirect only, and again enable snow particles. Good. If I enable preview render, we can see that the scene becomes like a mask. This is how holdout works. It turns the collection into the mask and cuts off everything behind these collections. We will not see the snow, for example, behind these trees. But indirect only means that all the selected collections will impact the render of the snow collections like it would be rendered together. Next, we have to enable transparent in the render settings to hide the background, but still remains only the light since we used volume in this case, and we need to set these light collections also as indirect only. We do not need holdout for this collection. Now we can see the snow, but this snow looks the same as we would render it with the whole scene, and that's what we need. If I, for example, switch to this light collection, change the light and make this light collection as indirect only, we can see the same. Snow with alpha channel, but with all lights and scene impaction. And if I go to the rendering tab in Blender and let's, for example, look at this last render image, it's 1 minute for rendering, which is not bad, but if we do animation rendering in 300 frames, it might take more than 300 minutes, which is more than 5 hours for each animation, and for rendering 4 animation it might take more than 20 hours. And this is already not good, right? Instead, I switched to another render slot, and as you remember, now I am going to render only the snow collection. And I also reduce render samples to 24, because I don't need a lot of samples in this case, and it also saves a lot of time for me. So make a test render and we get 45 seconds on this frame. And you might say it's not so good, but this is only one image render. Because for the animation render, I go to render settings and enable persistent data. Using these settings, Blender uploads all data for rendering only one time when we'll calculate the first frame and keeps this data in the memory for all frames. So we can see that the first frame took 35 seconds for rendering, but since all data is saved in the memory, as you can see, the second frame already took 14 seconds, which is impressive compared with 1 minute for rendering for the whole scene. This way of rendering allows us to save a lot of time on the animation and hard projects. And by the way, one more time, because a lot of people still do this incorrectly, to save this animation of snow, better to use an image sequences. I use PNG sequences, but not a video format, only sequences. And in this case I also need RGB with alpha. I already talked about this. On this stage we use only image sequences. So I saved all renders and snow sequences, and our further work will be in Compositing, also in Blender. We can check all render materials here. So, looks good, and let's combine everything into one animation using Compositing technique in Blender. Let's start with the first one, and essentially everything that we need is alpha over node. Connect still render, connect snow animation, and that's it. Yeah, it's simple. I duplicate this alpha over node to the second animation, night shot. But here it's not so good. Maybe it would be great to add some color balance node to this snow and make small corrections, like making it a little bit colder and more transparent. So duplicate alpha over node to the next shot, connect snow, and here everything looks good. Do the same for the last one. And here also everything looks amazing. And that's where we could stop and do the final animation, but I thought it would be really cool to add smoke from this chimney of houses, to make it look real, because it's winter and there is definitely someone lives in these houses. So let's add some smoke also here in Compositing. I already have smoke with X shot here. I just add scale node to resize this one to the render size in the project and invert this one, because in this case it's easier to add this to my render. To combine this smoke with render, I need mix color node. Connect this one and change the blending mode to screen. That's it. Next, let's work with the smoke. I need transform to move and scale this smoke footage. So let's place it somewhere here. This is going to be the first smoke. Second, I need color balance because we must match this smoke with the environment. Yes, some kind of like this. And here is another thing. This VFX footage starts with this beginning of the smoke simulation, and it doesn't fit to the scene because I need that in the first frame it already works, not just started. So we can easily do this just by using offset in this footage node. This allows us to shift this footage by some frames, and in the first frame of our animation, this footage will start from the 200th frame instead of the first one. Also, for more realism, I guess we need to make the smoke disappear in the air. And I'm going to do this by using a mask in Blender. To work with mask in Blender, we can switch here to masks and paint a mask, or I prefer to add a standard square mask. And here is my mask, and place this mask here. That's the bottom place on the chimney, and I'm going to work only with these top points. I need feather in order to make this part smoother. Now let's add the mask node in Compositor to choose this created mask. And use this mask as a factor in the mix color node. So nice. That's what I need, by the way. Remains only to do the same to all other chimneys. But one trick, I group all these nodes and keep working in this group, but in the main compositor it will be only one node. So press Tab to enter to this group node, and let's duplicate everything and connect this to the new mix color node. Using transform node, I can place it in the new chimney, and if I play an animation, we can see that these two smokes footages are similar, and it's definitely not that realism to our animation. To fix this, I use different offsets for all footages of smoke. Yeah, much better. And also I need to copy a mask to a new mask and choose this new mask in this mask node to make the smoke disappear in the air. It's also possible to adjust mask to make variation of the smoke. So duplicate this last one and repeat the same actions. I will not show the whole process of adding smoke, it's very long and really boring, although I love the compositing process, but in the final I got so many smoke nodes. I agree it's a little bit hard maybe, but look at this result. And we could stop here and do the final animation render, but you definitely want to be like a pro artist, right? That means that we need to add some post-processing and the color gradient, and although it could be done right here in Compositing, but I will switch to DaVinci Resolve. For this I need a composite node, and at this stage I will prefer to use an animation sequence, but don't need an alpha anymore, but definitely only sequence. Believe me, it's the most inappropriate moment something will go wrong. Render will hang, or Blender will crash, or something else, and it will start again. While using sequence, we just start rendering from the moment where the problem occurred. And now let's play the final animation in DaVinci Resolve. What do you think? By the way, which one do you like more? Write in the comments. Alright. Let's go to color gradient in DaVinci Resolve, and I want to make just small color corrections. Overall, I like the result, but I would like to work a little bit with the color and add a vignette. And let's start with the last one. So, I add mask and I scale it to cover mostly the foreground by this mask. Move gamma down. Oh, I forgot to invert this mask, that this effect works outside this mask. Yeah, that's correct. I keep using gamma to make this foreground darker. Maybe even move lift to some blue color, to make this part colder. So I return to the first node, and here I am going to make color gradient. Not too much, you know, I want to emphasize warm light from the sun and make overall gamma more colder. To see this much clearer, I open here vector scope. So I move gain to yellow, red colors, and at the same time pull lift to the blue. See this difference before and after. I add another node and copy this mask from the previous node. But here I invert this mask and reset all settings. Using gamma, I increase the light in this part. So this node works for the foreground and corners of this frame to add shadows, but this one adds more light in the distance of the picture. Thus we can add depth to the frame even without using the depth render path. Before and after. I add another node and here I want to work with colors and make local color correction, like using hue. I can shift red to the yellow side, a little bit, not too much. I also can go to hue versus luma, and using the same red color I can increase the light from the sun. So I add last one node and here I want to add film grain. In DaVinci Resolve we have a standard effect like film grain, and just drop to this last node this effect. It adds such cinematic grain. Here we can use also different presets of grain, but I'm going to use this one. Yeah, good, looks cool. So I use the same node combination for all other shots, just making local adjustments for each one by colors and using the same mask to add depth to the picture. Here's the final results after all compositing and color grading adjustments in DaVinci Resolve, and we can compare before and after all corrections. Yeah, it's not too many modifications, just to emphasize necessary details and color adjustments. In general, the adjustments do not have to be so many, The main goal of these adjustments is bring the results to the end. It's just a small changes that improves the overall perception of this picture. It's definitely easier to make in post-production stage than doing this in 3D scene, as I have already said several times in my other videos on the channel and Patreon. Hopefully this video was useful for you and you learned something new, maybe found something interesting for yourself. I would appreciate if you subscribe to my channel, share this video with your friends, and if you want to support my channel even further than YouTube, consider subscribing to my Patreon. There are many interesting things that I do not share on YouTube, the link in the description. That's all for today and I hope to see you in the next video.